Hello friends, in our previous session I talked about mindfulness at work, about the benefits of mindfulness workplace. Today I will discuss about mindful leadership. Till now we have discussed number of leadership styles in terms of contingency and contemporary leadership. Since when we are discussing about mindfulness at workplace, I will also talk about mindful leadership. Now this mindful leadership is something which is being cultivated. We cannot train any leader to be mindful, but yes, a leader who has the capability to lead the organization can also cultivate some characteristics or trait which can help followers to achieve their goal in a very open minded, compassionate and while being in present manner. So, before we discuss that how mindful leadership can impact the followers, let us talk about that what is mindful leadership. So, mindful leadership is a leadership style in which managers learn how to consciously cultivate their ability to be in present, open minded and compassionate while interacting with their team members as they show the same care and consideration for themselves. So, it is basically a reciprocal process where not only a leader is cultivating some moment to moment awareness for their members, but it is actually they are responding equally in a similar way, that both the followers and the leaders are cultivating same type of traits, so that the exchange is completely mindful between two parties. So, mindful leadership refers to the leadership style that is both intentional and deliberate. Intentions are the goals and aspirations, and deliberate here is that while deliberately, consciously cultivating those skills to touch upon the sensitivities of the employees or the followers and developing some awareness about how the task has to be performed, that leads to mindful leadership. So, it is about shutting down the mind's busy mode to notice and respond to what is happening in the moment instead of defaulting to reactive patterns. Again, earlier what we discussed about mindfulness at work is that how managers can be able to curb down the reactive patterns when they are exposed to different kind of stimulus or different kind of task at work. Similarly, even when we are talking about mindful leadership, then a leader has to cut down on his busy mode and stop reacting and responding to every new situation given by the follower in a very subtle manner or in a very aware manner. That means there should be no default reactive patterns or reactions that can create or evolve any conflicting situation. So, this is all about mindful leadership. So, mindful leaders are present and in tune with the operations of their business, and they can respond to immediate needs more effectively. Interacting with the team members while having a complete knowledge of the business or the market environment, then the mindful leader can relate the demands and control that is being given to him to control the followers. Then there can be a proper synchronization in the thought process, which is completely based on awareness. There is moment to moment perception of the situation of the followers and the business operations, and how when three are aligned, then it can lead to mindful leadership and mindful functioning of the employees. Thus, based on the trait of being mindful, leaders can encourage trust within their teams and help align others toward the organizational mission. So, it is reciprocal. If the leader can cultivate their ability to be present and open minded and compassionate when interacting with their team members, then they also show the same care and consideration for themselves. So, this is how mindful leadership can evolve in any organization only when managers or any leader is able to understand the moment to moment interaction with the followers based on the knowledge of the business a leader possesses, and how the mission of the organization and emotions of the members can be streamlined in a proper manner, that organizational effectiveness is also maintained and employees or followers are also functional at the same time. When we are talking about mindful leadership, it is about four components: the focus, clarity, creativity and compassion. If all these components are working together within a leader, then definitely we can say that a leader is a mindful leader, because all these elements are working in one particular moment based on the situation. So, if we talk about in detail about the focus as the component, then mindful leadership allow leaders to sustain their attention and engage in problem solving process. So, thus invoking a state of related alertness from which a conscious skillful response can be made. So, based on the problem that has existed in the organization, what problem solving strategy has been followed or established, and how it is related to that particular moment while including the leaders also, then that decision making or a conscious decision becomes more effective, and an appropriate or effective response will come from the followers side as well. So, this is the focus. So, focus is to manage the problem effectively based on the available information, based on the response of the followers, and based on the effect of the problem solving strategy. When all these factors are being combined into one line, then we can say that the focus or the ability of the leader is very mindful. The other is clarity, understanding the real nature of the situation, that what the nature demands, and then picking out that available resource and fitting it into that situation. That is focus or clarity. So, a mindful leader is able to see what is not and what we expect to see. So, mindful leadership helps to see one's own conditioning, biases and filters. We are biased, how to help a particular follower in a particular situation. We know how to filter out that what resources are helpful, what resources are not helpful in a particular situation, and how we condition ourselves to get into or absorb into that situation. That is clarity. So, what situation requires, what situation is, and what it can be, and then what it cannot be. It all depends on the available resources, reaction or responses of the followers, and how the reaction or responses of the followers are very much in line with the available resources. That gives more clarity to the situation based on mindful leadership. The other is creativity, that it requires spaciousness, filtering out the unnecessary information and including which is required more relevant to the situation, creates more space for creativity and innovation. More thought process becomes expansive in terms of being more accepting the environment and bringing solution to the problem. So, that means that whenever there is any problem in any organization, then it becomes very much important for the leader to mindful enough to first learn and adapt the situation, understand the problem, and then imagine or visualize that what can be the solution based on the available resources. So, mindful leaders possess the ability to create space for creativity and innovation in the midst of busyness and to do it list. Mindful leadership activates neural systems that allow leaders to learn and adapt to the demands of the situation, to explore multiple perspectives and attend to information holistically, thereby enhancing the potential for innovation. And the last is compassion, which is the most important aspect of mindful leadership. No matter how many resources an organization have to deal with the problem or to introduce new solution to the problem, if the leader is not mindfully compassionate while not giving moment to moment attention to each and every emotion of the leader, then that mindful leadership will fail to operate in particular situation. So, mindful leaders exhibit empathy and deep understanding with their members, including things that are complex and difficult and cause suffering in work lives and in communities. Understanding the pain of the employee. We can be empathetic, we can understand the emotion, but to what extent any negative emotion or situation is inflicting an employee's performance, understanding infliction, that to what extent the employee is in pain, that compassion, that empathy will help to introduce mindful leadership and mindful functioning of the employees, thus fostering authentic relationship with others, clients and co-workers. So, this is how, when empathy is existing in any leader, then how it expands to other corners of or other vital connections of the organization in terms of employee, in terms of clients and in terms of co-workers. The more the leader is mindful, the more the organization is mindful, the more organization is able to mindfully touch the sensitivities and intricacies of the emotional level or aspect of a co-worker, any client or any manager, which will help leader to understand the emotional states of the followers and giving a right solution to resolve. So, these are the 4 components or skills, I would say, in terms of focus, clarity, creativity and compassion to become a mindful leader. When these skills exist within a leader, then we can definitely be sure that the leader is mindful enough to lead the organization in the right direction, which as a result not only lead to positive organizational consequences, but actually that leads the organization to be called as a mindful organization. Next comes consequences of mindful leadership. As I mentioned, that definitely it will lead to effective results or positive consequences of mindful leadership. But these consequences are something beyond organizational outcomes. We will not talk about productivity, we will not talk about effectiveness, we will not talk about efficiency. We will talk about the consequences which are beyond imagination, which is the result of mindful leadership. The first is that mindful leadership enhances interpersonal functioning, empathy and self-awareness. This connotes that a mindful leader can discern the emotions of the co-workers. Discern here means to understand and identify clearly the emotional state of the employees. The mindful leader actually, or mindful leadership actually enables the leader to identify the negative effect of a leader and how it can impact the functioning of the leader. So, before the before the negative emotions impact the functioning of the leader in a very negative manner, the mindful leader actually takes decision how to be empathetic and become aware of his or her emotions and then propose any solution to their problems. So, ultimately it is the ability of a leader to be compassionate towards others and has many consequences for enhancing levels of trust and creating a collaborative, safe working environment. Now, safe working environment is not only in terms of physical connotations, it also relates to safe working environment where emotions are being taken care of, which actually evolves through trust. So, a mindful leader can discern the co-workers' negative effect and take action before the negative emotions escalate and lead to counterproductive work behaviors. So, there is less resentment and more acceptance of the organizational targets. So, this has implications for applying these attitudes to oneself and to others. That is, even a leader is also becoming aware of his own emotions and at the same time the others and vice versa. So, there is reciprocal process that when leaders are understanding the emotions of their followers, then followers also understand the emotional aspects of the leaders, thereby fostering positive interpersonal and professional relationship. For example, when faced with an incomplete assignment, rather than judging that this is a failure of an employee, one can attend to the situation with acceptance and be able to focus on the next assignment. So, this is about not focusing on the negative, it is about focusing on the positive, that maybe the assignment is not complete, but half of it is complete. So, what half can contribute to the effectiveness of the organization. So, this is all about interpersonal functioning, empathy and self-awareness. So, we can say that a mindful leadership has strong emotional sensitivity in setting the tone for all members of the team and being able to assess others' emotions, cultivate trust such that each member feels valued in the organization, thus creating high functioning work teams and organizations. So, it is something, an outcome which is beyond our visualization. Otherwise, every leader would just focus on effectiveness and efficiency of the followers in the organization. But to what extent we are touching on the emotional sensitivity aspects of the organization and followers, that is the outcome of mindful leadership. The other is mindful leader fosters emotional regulation. That means the leader has the ability to identify the emotional discord among members. It is not about that there is discord or disagreement about values, opinions and beliefs or ideas. The discord can be at emotional level between two members. Then that emotional discord can between two people can also have a very negative impact on the functioning of the group or the organization or the team. To identify that emotional discord while being sensitive to the emotions of the employees and then resolving the interpersonal conflict will actually help a mindful leader to lead organization in a very positive direction. So a mindful leader may engage in perspective taking and gauge others' emotions and prevent impending conflict. Before taking any action, if mindful leader is focusing on the emotional discords that exist among members, actually it fosters or augments another trait of mindful leader, that is perspective taking, that is understanding the situation, that how that conflict has evolved, rather than just directly attacking the problem and finding the solution between for two people. It is more important to take the perspectives of the two employees who are having emotional discord and then coming to the solution. That will actually delay the conflict or curb the conflict. So a mindful leader has the potential to manage the emotional tone of the workplace and optimize attunement effectively to inspire and relate to employees and create collective aspirations. So this increases social connections, not between leader and the member, it is among the group members as well, while cultivating moment to moment awareness and non-judgment acceptance and enhance the sensory, perceptual and self-regulatory components that compromise emotional intelligence. So as soon as the perspective taking has been taken into account, the leader, a mindful leader, can even make two conflicting persons aware about their emotions, identify, correct them, evolve positive emotions and resolve that discord in a very compassionate manner. So this is actually an area of emotional intelligence, that how mindful leader uses this concept or process of emotional intelligence in a very effective manner, which share emphasis between results and relationships. The other is that mindful leader creates a healthy learning environment. No doubt stress exists in every organization, work demands are there in every organization and it leads to stress. But at the same time, when these stress, fears, threat inhibit learning process of the employees, then actually accepting that threat and converting that threat mindfully as a learning environment, then actually more talent is being exhibited by the employee. As it is being said that it is not only that whenever stress is there the performance goes down, sometimes to overcome the stress the performance also goes up. So this is actually the area of being mindfulness about that particular moment, that what is required and how it can be recovered. So recovering your loss because of threat, pressure or fear, it can only be recovered when we tend to understand in a particular moment that what is required, what has to be filtered and what has to be performed, which actually creates new learning and unlearning old patterns of work, gaining new knowledge patterns and executing it at the work. So this actually creates a healthy learning environment. So when deadlines and meetings with client inevitably create high pressure environment, then it affects one's optimal process. But awareness instigates a more efficient and effective learning process. So the attention shifts from stress to learning new skills so that the stress can be overcome to perform new skill and knowledge and having another or reaching another level of goal. So mindful leadership actually keeps a priority to complete the task. Here completing task means the conflict monitoring, that whenever there is a conflict between performing the task and stress, then how to attend that stress in a current situation by influencing lot of knowledge to that task, on that task and shifting attention to new task and at the same time learning new skills so that the task can be performed in a very effective manner. Thus, in integrating a mindful approach, employees will be more productive and able to attend to what they were doing prior to the distraction. So attention focus is required. Now here what happens, that whenever we are in a particular moment, that moment requires lot of attention. This attention is shifting your attention from stress to your new learning so that stress can be overcome, and learning new knowledge or excelling in a new area would help to perform the task and overcome the stress in a very constructive manner. So, this is the benefit, the major benefit of mindful leadership is that it creates a healthy learning environment. And the last is, this is a very important consequence of mindful leadership, that it fosters hypoegoic state of self process in optimal functioning. In brief, I can say that it leads to well-being, but here hypoegoic state can be evolved when we are pursuing mindfulness at work. This actually refers to a sense of well-being that tends to accompany many positive psychological experiences. It is not about that thinking only about from your perspective while only focusing on your id state, that this is what I want. No, it is beyond something that you are giving to the organization while focusing on your acceptance and moment to moment awareness. So, this also focus on hypoegoic states in terms of self optimal functioning and at the same time pro-social beliefs and actions in which people behave in ways that benefit other people, not only costing to themselves. So, this is hypoegoic state of optimal functioning, which is a self process and how a person evolves when he or she is practicing mindfulness at work. It can be humility, it can be positive emotions such as compassion, altruism and love, wisdom and transcendence. Here transcendence means at par, that being mindful, being in a particular moment, achieving something in a particular moment and what you can contribute to the betterment for the employees. So, this is a hypoegoic state in optimal function. So, this is all about mindful leadership and mindfulness at work. Next comes, these are the multiple conceptualizations of mindfulness. Since there are some physiology involved in understanding the state of mindfulness within individuals, but at the same time we have some standardized questionnaires to conceptualize the state of mindfulness among employees. So, there are standardized scales and very much into research areas. The first is mindful attention awareness scale, 5-facet mindfulness, mindfulness and mindlessness scale, Freiberg mindfulness inventory, Kentucky inventory of mindfulness skills, cognitive and affective mindfulness scales, the Toronto mindfulness scale, Southampton mindfulness questionnaire and Philadelphia mindfulness scales. So, these are the scales which are being used in workplaces to understand the state of mindfulness of employees at work. Next comes, which is the most important aspect when we are talking about mindfulness or mindfulness at work, that how it can be incorporated as an intervention so that there is less stress and better effective and efficient performance. So, psychologists have identified some therapies in form of interventions, that how mindfulness can be cultivated among employees. The first is, which is one of the most basic form of intervention, that is the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. This was introduced by Kabat-Zinn in the year 2013 and 1990. And it is a systematic procedure by which attention skills are developed. As moment to moment awareness is required to achieve a state of mindfulness. So, these kind of interventions actually focus on the attention skills and span of an individual, that how attention skills can be developed, emotions can be regulated or modulated, and how thinking can be enhanced significantly while reducing the stress levels. So, MBSR emphasizes coping skills and enhancing one's relationship with themselves, enhancing mental health to reduce stress and to increase well-being. Once an individual learns some skills to be more attentive in a particular moment, then he or she is able to discern not only others' emotions, but emotions of oneself, and create a space where the person fits emotionally well in that situation. That is detaching oneself and from the situation and then imposing oneself in that situation or adjusting in that situation is actually a state of mindfulness. So, this requires long term training sessions, that how attention can be increased to understand a particular moment in a very mindful manner. That means how you are receiving that particular moment. So, the benefits are that there are physical and mental well-being to reduce the physiological effects of stress. There is exploration of stress and distress to reduce levels of emotional reactivity. When the more attention is given to the moment, less reactions will be evoked. Self-control in the face of changes and inevitable losses to any human life. Open-mindedness in daily life. When we are more mindful to the moment situation, the more we are detached, then the more we are able to receive openness in the change, and gradually we tend to become acceptable to the novel changes in day to day life. And the last is that there is connection to the intrinsic resources to deal with high stress levels and break the cycle of these maladaptive cognitive process. Now, here maladaptive cognitive process means that once we are detached from any particular moment, while identifying that situation, in discerning any situation in a very objective manner, then the cognitive process becomes very precise. We are not able to relate every time with our own personal emotions, rather in a more open manner. The other is mindfulness oriented recovery enhancement, or MORE program by Garland. This program aims to diminish habitual patterns of behavior, stress, exhaustion and physical and emotional discomforts, and foster meaning in life. We have already used this concept previously, that how to add meaning in life and work. So, this basically focuses on some remedial measures. The first is mindfulness, that is enhancing self control while detaching oneself from the negative patterns of response and utilize emotions in a more productive manner. That means we are capitalizing to produce more or exhibit more positive emotions and positive insights for the world. The other is reappraisal. That means we are detaching from the discordant thoughts and eliminate negative thoughts and emotions. We are detaching oneself from the negative emotions and try to reappraise the situation in a very flexible manner, that is psychological flexibility, by dissociating from negative evaluation of stress and bringing more positivity or looking out for more positivity in that situation, which fosters resilience and meaning. Here resilience means any tough situation we are encountering, to what extent we develop the stamina to bounce back and accept the situation and bring more meaning, because once we are resilient enough to bounce back from the adversity or untoward incident, then we actually understand the real meaning of problem solving and give better meaning to that situation and the consequence. So, this is another aspect of MORE program. And the last is savoring, filtering out positive events and detaching from the negative events and savoring those events in a form of enriching experiences. So, an individual is aware of positive emotions and giving lucid, effective meaning to a pleasant life experience at work. Again, an employee spends more than 30 years or 40 years in an organization, giving so much of time to his career, filtering out all the positive experiences and then savoring those experiences will actually reflect an individual's mindful state of mind, while detaching from all the negativities and accepting negativity, but savoring and remembering and cherishing and enriching only the positive experience. So, cherishment is there and at the same time acceptance is there, but we are attaching to positive experiences and detaching from negative experiences, although both will stay there. So, this is mindfulness oriented recovery enhancement program, how we are recovering from adversity, how we are recovering from negative experiences and being more acceptful. The other is mindfulness-based relapse prevention program. It is a neoteric method or novel method designed to cultivate an understanding of provocative, automatic and destructive behavioral pattern of behavior. This is something that completely focuses on the negative perception of employees or an individual, that how to curb, how a person can diminish the discordant, the deviant, the destructive patterns of behavior, and how it can suspend and scrutinize the present situation and bring awareness and consciousness to a broad spectrum of alternatives to respond appropriately in a situation. Subsiding all the negative feelings, emotions, thoughts and reactions, and then focusing on that situation. It should not be that the person, when is thrown to a new situation, negative situation, the person is dominated by his own negative thoughts. This therapy or intervention builds capacity within a person how to shed off the negative thought patterns and try to perceive that negative situation in a very objective and detached manner, not bringing one's own thought patterns, negative thought patterns to that negative situation, because it will add more negativity or it will lead to more addition of problems. So, once the negative thoughts are being detached from a person, the person can perceive the problem in a novel manner and can give more insights to resolve those negative situations in a very productive manner. So, this is about present situation and bring awareness and objectivity to understand the situation with a broad spectrum of alternatives and respond appropriately. So, what are the benefits of these kind of program? They develop awareness and understanding of the automatic behavioral reactions and grasp different ways to control those automated response. Develop an understanding of how to perceive challenging emotional and physical experience and acknowledge them competently. Foster an open-minded, compassionate approach towards oneself and experiences, and build a style of life that acts as a fulcrum to foster both well-being and restoration. So, this kind of program actually creates a fulcrum, a point at which the person can uplift himself or herself to a state of well-being while detaching from his own negative thoughts and rising from that point to resolve that conflict. So, it is a kind of into a complex situation, and how to reduce that percent of complexity by first reducing one's own complex emotions and then stepping out of those emotions to handle those negative situations at hand. So, it is at hand experience while you are in a state of negativity. So, this brings more objectivity and moment to moment awareness of any situation. And the other is mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. This is also one of the most widely used and popular intervention program used to cultivate mindfulness. It is a therapy which entails cultivating awareness among employees about depression and anxiety and the role that cognition plays within. So, this is more towards treating psychological problems at workplace such as depression, anxiety, stress, and how this therapy majorly focuses on decentering, that is being attentive to one's intrinsic thoughts and emotions but not adhering or reacting to them. It is simply about what factors lead to depression, what work factors lead to anxiety, what factors are leading an individual towards stress. It can be emotional stress, it can be work stress, how those factors can be resolved while focusing on the internal thoughts. If any employee who is suffering from depression, anxiety or work stress, then identifying those thoughts that you are under depression and disassociating yourself from those factors which are causing depression, stress or anxiety, that is actually a mindfulness based cognitive theory. That first identify your thoughts, then identifying what factors are leading to these kind of depression, anxiety, stress or negative thoughts. So, how these thoughts or sources of depression can be disassociated within the person and how those patterns can be converted to positive ones. So, this practice plays a significant role in decreasing dysfunctional cognitive process such as judgment, reactivity, thought suppression, anxiety and worry. Once we are able to identify that what factors leading us to get into or pushing oneself into this negative thought pattern, then immediately those thought patterns can be broken down. There can be a breach between the negative thought patterns and the factors that lead to negative thought patterns. Once that association is breached, it is broken within the person, then the person is able to reframe his cognitive process in a very constructive manner, because there is decentering, that how these negative patterns are making a central point in an individual's thought process, how to decentralize this thought process based on identifying the sources and then detaching oneself from those resources. So, this is mindfulness based cognitive theory, that is MBCT. So, this is all about mindfulness, mindfulness at work, mindful leadership and mindfulness intervention programs which are being pursued at workplaces to help employees to evolve themselves as mindful employees, leaders and finally organization. Thank you so much. We will meet again in the next session. Thank you.